Okay, cool. All right, we're live now. Hey guys, hey. All right, so study group time. Remember, study group time. I'm still supposed to get like a little like thing back there, so I just say it like right there, hang it on maybe on my ladder. Says study group, no personal questions or no personal reading. So for those of you tuning in, so this is our study group time. We are discussing The Secret, reading it and going through it and discussing it and learning new things and dissecting it, etc. For those of you who are tuning in wanting a free reading or a personal reading, unfortunately that was in the last hour. This is the study group time. So all personal questions regarding to personal readings and spirit communications will be ignored, okay? So this is all study group time. So for those of you who are joining in and want to follow along, feel free to ask questions regarding the topic. So it's either got to do with the book, reading from the book, stuff that we will be discussing, or spiritual related topical questions, okay? So I think that's it. I think that's all I need to say before we get started, right? Yeah. So, and we are, let's see, the last time we were doing we're in page 19 of the book. So we're in page 19 of The Secret. So what I'll do is I'll read and then we will stop and then comment. I'll give my commentary and we'll discuss it and so forth. Let me see what you guys, hey, I'll be back. Hello, Biba, hello. Hey, por vida. Hey, I love you too, mama. Steven's like, hi, long time since I've been on here. How you been? I've been great. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing well too. It's funny because I'm hearing from people that haven't been on in a while. I have had people who are like, hey, I haven't been on social media for a while. I'm like, I understand. Like, I get it. I totally get it. It's funny because some days I just want to like cut social media, but I can't. My business is dependent on social media. But my partner's like, you should get rid of Facebook. I'm like, I would totally get rid of Facebook, but there's no other options. Like I have few options for how I can reach and connect with people. And unfortunately, it's almost like it's, you have to kind of use it. You have to work with the evils of this world, in other words, to kind of achieve something positive, So it is what it is. Let me see what else I got. Cool. Okay, cool. So let's get started. So The Secret, page 19, and the power of your mind. And that's where we left off. You attract to you the predominant thoughts that you're holding in your awareness, whether those thoughts are conscious or unconscious. That's the rub. Whether you have been aware of your thoughts in the past or not, now you are becoming aware. Right now, with the knowledge of the secret, you are waking up from a deep sleep and becoming aware. Aware of the knowledge, aware of the law, aware of the power you have through your thoughts. If you look very carefully when it comes to the secret and the power of our mind and the power of our intention in our daily lives, it's all around us. All we have to do is open our eyes and look. You can see the law of attraction everywhere. You draw everything to yourself, the people, the job, the circumstances, the health, the wealth, the debt, the joy, the car that you drive, the community that you're in, and you've drawn them all to you like a magnet. What you think about, you bring about. Your whole life is a manifestation of the thoughts that go on in your head. This is a universe of inclusion, not exclusion. Nothing is excluded from the law of attraction. Your life is a mirror of the dominant thoughts you think. All living things on this planet operate through the law of attraction. The difference with humans is that they have a mind that can discern. They can use their free will to choose their thoughts. They have the power to intentionally think and create their entire life with their mind. I'm not talking to you from the point of view of wishful thinking or imaginary craziness. I'm talking to you from a deeper, basic understanding. Quantum physics really begins to point to this discovery. It says that you can't have a universe without mind entering into it, and that the mind is actually shaping the very thing that is being perceived. If you think about the analogy of being the most powerful transmission tower in the universe, you will see the perfect correlation with Dr. Wolf's words. Your mind And that Dr. Wood's Wolf's words were what I just said to you minutes ago. If you think about the analogy of being the most powerful transverse, you will see the perfect correlation. Your mind thinks thoughts, and the pictures are broadcast back as your life experience. You not only create your life with your thoughts, but your thoughts add powerfully to the creation of the world. If you thought that you were insignificant and had no power in this world, think again. Your mind is actually shaping the world around you. The amazing work and discoveries of the quantum physicists over the last 80 years has brought us to a greater understanding of the unfathomable power of the human mind to create. Their work parallels the words of the world's greatest minds, including Carnegie, Emerson, Shakespeare, Bacon, Krishnamurti, and Buddha. If you don't understand the law, that doesn't mean you should reject it. You may not understand electricity, and yet you enjoy the benefits of it. I don't know how it works, but I know this. You can cook a man's dinner with electricity, and you can also cook the man. Oftentimes, when people begin to understand the great secret, they become frightened of all the negative thoughts that they have. They need to be aware that it has been scientifically proven that an affirmative thought is hundreds of times more powerful than a negative thought. That eliminates a degree of worry right there. It really does take many negative thoughts and persistent negative thinking to bring something negative into your life. However, if you persist in thinking negative thoughts over a period of time, they will appear in your life. If you worry about having negative thoughts, you will attract more worry about your negative thoughts and multiply them at the same time. Decide right now that you are going to think only good thoughts. At the same time, proclaim to the universe that all your good thoughts are powerful and that any negative thoughts are weak. Thank God that there's a time delay, that all of your thoughts don't come true instantly. We'd be in trouble if they did. The element of time delay serves you. It allows you to reassess, to think about what you want, and to make a new choice. All of your power to create your life is available right now, because right now is when you are thinking. If you have had some thoughts that will not be beneficial when they manifest, then right now you can change your thinking. You can erase your previous thoughts by replacing them with good thoughts. Time serves you because you can think new thoughts and emit a new frequency now. And let's stop there for a second because I want to discuss that for a little bit. There's this kind of obsessive idea that in order for you to achieve anything great, you have to think positive thoughts. And that's a load of shit. That's like bullshit. Because I have created a crap load of wonderful things, and I wasn't always in an ideal state when they came about. Sometimes they just happened even when I was crabby that morning. It doesn't matter. And so the idea that's where some people go wrong, in my opinion, or just don't get it. And this is something that I personally got stuck in for years, where I believed I had to only think positive, only think positive, only think positive, and that's not right. When you are focused on trying to only be positive and think positive, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try to be a more positive person or be a more optimistic person, but what they make it sound like is like you have to only think positive, and it's only when you think positive then life will be perfect, and it's not. You're gonna still it doesn't matter how positive you try to think, bad shit happens to good people. That is just a given in this world, in this reality. We live in a dualistic environment. We live in an environment of duality, which means both positive and negative experiences happening here. That is the one thing that even the great Buddha Siddhartha figured out, which is all humans suffer. All humans will endure suffering in some way, shape, or another. So being here in this physical world, having a experience of suffering is a given. That is just going to happen regardless of whether you think positive or negative. However, the experience of suffering becomes magnified and amplified when you only allow yourself to support and sustain a more pessimistic, darker mindset, or a mindset that is focused on suffering, meaning that any thoughts, any reactions, any behaviors, anything based in fear, in the idea of lack, in the idea of anger or hatred, or in the idea of control or even manipulation from that perspective, that is going to perpetuate and amplify the amount of suffering you will endure here. I'm all about I'm here. I'm gonna have a human life. I know I'm gonna go through some shit because I've already been through quite enough of it, and so that's just a given. But I'm trying to reduce how much of it I'm going to go through, so that way it's reduced significantly. So that's what I've worked on. So instead of trying to have this perfect ideal life or have this like ideal state of being, I do not believe, and I have never seen that being possible here in this physical form. It actually goes against the reason why we exist in this form, because we're supposed to be human and have both positive and negative experiences. All of it serves us in one way or another. Even the bad experiences or the suffering experiences serve our soul in some way. And so by default, when we come into this form, there is a plan, and that plan includes both enjoyable, loving, and wonderful experiences and darker experiences as well, painful experiences, suffering. And so some of those experiences that do involve suffering, there are certain unique opportunities for gaining from those, whether we realize it in the moment or not. And our soul utilizes those experiences. Sometimes we put ourselves through more than we need to. And that's when I'm like, you need to get better with your energy so you can reduce this. But you don't have to go through as much of it as you think. And I think that's where we need to work on that, is that it's not about being 100% positive or only being positive or only thinking positively. Because, those people get annoying. I know, because I was one of them. So they just don't live in a reality bubble. They don't live in the human reality. They may try to operate from that perspective and then also live in this reality. Unfortunately, life is gonna like humble them and say, no, sorry, sweetheart, but you're in this physical world for a reason. And so you're gonna have experiences regardless of how positive you try to be. So it's not about, if you can be positive and only positive, then life will be amazing. No, because you can create a lot of wonderful things, and you can create a lot of, you can achieve a lot and manifest a lot just by focusing on the work, focusing on the intention, and being better at your state of being. In other words, if I wake up and I'm moody and bitchy and I am not the most pleasant person in the world, but I'm very fixated and focused on creating and producing something, and I obsess about that thing or focus a lot of my energy and time thinking about that, not thinking about wishful thinking about it, but just thinking about what do I need to do for this? What do I need to do towards that? What do I need towards that? And then I intend for that, and then I take steps and actions to move in that direction, and I keep dreaming about it, thinking about it, whatever. I'm pretty much going to end up achieving it, because we have plenty of people who've been able to do just such, and they were not the most positive people. They were not the most, this or that. Look at like people like Steve Jobs. I mean, apparently he was a dick, but look at what he was able to achieve even in that state. So he wasn't the most positive person, but he was able to achieve some things. Look at Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was apparently she was a really nasty person and was not a fun person to be around, and was sometimes in many ways heartless. And yet, and you ask the people who knew her best, the people who worked with her, the people who were there with her every day, and they will affirm this. But when you look at it from the world stage, she's such a nice person, she's so kind, she's doing good things in the world. Yeah, she did a lot of great in this world, but she was also very, it was either her way or the highway. That was it. And so she was very, very much that way. And so she wasn't the most positive person in the world, but she achieved a lot, and she was able to make a movement and to produce a lot in this world as well. And so, that's what happens. And so you don't have to be the most positive person to achieve in this world, but you will suffer less if you focus on your state of being, and if you maintain a more elevated perspective in life, a more loving and compassionate nature. You will suffer less in this world. And not only that, you will also offer others the opportunity to suffer less also. And that's the thing. It's like, do you want to go through this by yourself, or would you rather hold my hand while we're going through this together? And that's what it's about. So I don't agree with the idea of you only have to be positive. Because I went through that period where I was trying to control every thought in my mind, and if I was having a negative thought or an ugly thought or whatever, then I would guilt myself so much over that. And that's a bit too much, and it's a bit obsessive, and it doesn't really matter, because I've achieved more I actually achieved more in just dealing with reality and being more balanced than when I was trying to be more positive. When I was trying to be more positive, I didn't achieve as much. I really didn't. I achieved a lot more and manifested a lot more by just being more balanced. So So I don't agree with the idea of only being positive and positive. Being optimistic, yeah, I'm always optimistic. I'm always like, look, if shit goes down, I know how to take care of it. I've handled stuff. I know how to deal with stuff. And so I will do my best. And if I have to give up something or have to lose everything to survive, then I will lose everything to survive. But that is if that happens. But I'm going to still operate and focus on what I'm trying to achieve. And that's the risk I'm willing to take. And so you have to kind of have a mindset that you're willing to accept and deal with the worst. It's not what you want, it's not what you choose, but you'll deal with it if you have to, but you prefer the best. And you focus on the best, and you do what you can to achieve the best. That's how I would describe it, okay? So going back to this, so you want to become aware. So where was this? Yeah, all of your power to create your life is available right now, because right now is when you are thinking. If you have had some thoughts that will not be beneficial when they manifest, then right now you can change your thinking. You can erase your previous thoughts by replacing them with good thoughts. Time serves you because you can think new thoughts and emit a new frequency now. You want to become aware of your thoughts and choose your thoughts carefully. And you want to have fun with this because you are the masterpiece of your own life. You are the Michelangelo of your own life. The David you are sculpting is you. One way to master your mind is to learn to quiet your mind without exception. Every teacher in this book uses meditation as a daily practice. It wasn't until I discovered the secret that I realized how powerful meditation can be. Meditation quiets your mind, helps you to control your thoughts, and revitalizes your body. The great news is that you don't have to set aside hours to meditate. Just 3 to 10 minutes a day to begin with can be incredibly powerful for gaining control over your thoughts. So I don't agree with the idea of controlling your thoughts because I don't treat my thoughts as if they need to be controlled. I treat my thoughts as a conditioned response mechanism. In other words, think of it this way. Think of like a dog. If a dog is trained and conditioned to do a certain thing, to follow the same routine, your mind is the same thing. Your mind is like a dog that is not guided and has been conditioned by its experiences and its reactions to things. And so your mind does nothing. Your mind is going to do what you've basically become used to doing, which is most people will wake up worrying or stressing or thinking about stuff that they don't want to think about. And then throughout the day, they're stressed out because of whatever they're dealing with. And then they go to sleep freaking out or worried or stressed and thinking about that as well. And the one thing that people like that have in common is that they dream or they wish for something better, but they spend more time sustaining and worrying and maintaining the status quo mindset than to actually focus more on what they are dreaming about or what they are preferring. In other words, I'll use money as an example because that's something that I've had to really work on. Coming from the hood, coming from, being poor and impoverished, in my life, I grew up on food stamps. So this is how my life was as a child. The idea of having money and going to the grocery store and not stressing out over what you're buying was like a foreign concept to me. That was not something I was ever used to. And I had to teach myself how to not stress about. So even when I had money or I was doing better in my life and I had a job and I was able to pay for stuff myself, I would go to the store and I would spend money and I always felt stressed, felt guilty, felt worried that it was going to run out or there wasn't going to be enough. Or I would always desire for more because what I had still wasn't enough. So it was either one or the other. And what I decided to do is I instead decided to shift that and just try to appreciate what I had. Because when we can get to a place of appreciation of what's already there, that by default makes you feel better. In other words, when you're not praying and wishing and dreaming of more, all like on a consistent basis because you're reacting to what you are going through and you're doing more of that than dreaming or whatever, or focusing and working towards the goal, then totally lost my train of thought. Then what's happening there is, what was I talking about? I was talking about money, right? I was talking about money and I was talking about desiring of more. Oh yeah, appreciation. So when you appreciate or you make peace with, I call it making peace with. You can call it appreciation, you can call it gratitude. I just call it making peace with, meaning like, this is my life, this is the reality of the situation. Can I get the most out of this or can I enjoy this? Yeah, I can teach myself to enjoy this. That is actually appreciation. That's gratitude. But you don't have to think of it that way, because it's hard to be grateful and be appreciative of everything all the time. Like it's hard to be that way, just because we by default always want more. What I do is I just make peace. Like, this is it and I'm good with this. This is it and I'm good with this. This is it and I'm good with this. But I would like to have this experience. I would like to have this experience. I would like to have this experience. And then I just work towards it. And so it's the same thing with money. When you want more money, and you're dreaming, God, if I just won the lottery, or God, if I'm just positive, then I'll have money coming out of somewhere, or I'm thinking of $15,000 and I'm going to just put it out there and the universe is going to bring me 15,000. I'm going to be positive and positive, because I know that the universe is going to bring me 15,000 if I'm just positive. You're like literally doing nothing. That does nothing to manifest or to bring that about. What I would recommend, and my way around that, would be to actually embrace your financial situation as it stands, meaning your financial situation as it is now is what it is. Ain't no fantasy. That's just the reality of the situation. Okay, with my current financial situation, I want these things. I want to win the lottery. I want to have all this extra money. I would like $15,000 more. But I mean, I got to deal with the reality of the situation right now. So look at my accounts, look at what I'm spending. The reality is I'm spending too much money. I'm not really doing the most with what I get, and I'm only building more debt for myself. And so I need to get realistic and practical. And then once I do that and make peace, accept what is, by default, you're going to feel better. Because once you feel like you have control of the things that are creating all of this like conflictive energy within you, you no longer have something to be conflictive about. In other words, if you just feel better about your financial situation, even if you haven't won the lottery, you've got all this extra money, that is going to go a long way to shift your energy than if you're continuing to perpetuate the status quo, which is thinking about it from the moment you wake up, going to sleep, seeing a bill, freaking out every time you have to pay for something. That's all just going to start to diminish and settle down. So that reduces the amount of conflictive energy, that reduces the amount of energy you're pouring into suffering more or being negatively impacted by those circumstances. You're bringing your sense to you're bringing yourself to a state of peace, and you're okay with it. I'm okay. And that's where you want. You want to get to a place where you're okay. Every time I've gotten to a place in my life where I wake up and I go to sleep and I'm like, this is good. Like, this is good. You know, even if it's not the ideal, but it's fine. And I can do this. I can do this for some time. I can do this for years to come. Whenever I get to that place, that's when something shows up. That's a huge benefit, or something awesome shows up without me even trying. And it's because I get to that place where I'm at peace, I'm okay, which I'm grateful and I'm appreciative of. And so that's where you want to get to. Then from that state, then you can desire for more, but you want to desire for more in a way where it feels achievable to you, so that you can actually start to move in the direction of the thing you want to achieve. But you got to get to that starting point first. If you try to go from, my life sucks, I'm in the worst relationships, I can't afford shit, I hate my boss, I hate my job, I want to have a business, but my credit sucks, I can't even get a loan, but I'm going to be positive because I just saw the movie The Secret. I just read this book. I just saw a positive quote or positive meme, and I'm just going to be positive. And I'm going to press that like button because it says if I press it, I'm going to get $15,000. And so I'm just going to be positive. Like, you're literally fooling yourself if you think that does anything, because it doesn't. That is a cop-out. That is you expecting God or the universe to do the work for you, and you not being responsible or taking accountability for yourself. So stop with the wishful thinking, get real, deal with your shit, bring it to balance, bring it to a place of peace, and then you can be more wishful in your thinking. But if you don't even start there, anything beyond that is going to be a waste. And if you do manifest something or achieve something with law of attraction, it's going to be hit and miss. It's not going to be consistent. You got to get to a place where you can do it consistently, which is what I've been able to do, is manifest stuff and do it consistently. Okay? Going back to this. So, all right, going back to this. By the way, guys, if you get hit, there's like it's a princess and a like or whatever. There's trolls in the Facebook, so they're messaging y'all to message them for a free reading or an accurate reading. Their trolls are going to take your money. They're con artists, so be careful. You've been warned. Going back to this, one way to master your mind is meditation. And so meditation, by the way, if you go to sleep feeling the thing you want to feel, and it's a great shortcut, because this is a shortcut, and this is really focused on, like, The Secret has really focused on positive thinking and visualization, And some people don't understand that. And not only that, but when you're envisioning something, it's still operating on that dream and ideal like reality. I say don't focus on visualizing something, focus on assuming the experience of it. Meaning, if I want to, here's an example. If I want to experience living in Santa Fe, this was before I lived here. If I want to experience living in Santa Fe, and I want to experience what it's like to wake up and smell the smells of the outside here, because there's unique smells here that I absolutely love. If I want to wake up hearing certain sounds, if I want to wake up with a certain type of coffee I always had when we came on vacation here, if I want to have that experience on a regular basis, then I need to give myself as close to that experience on a regular basis. And so I made a lot of little micro changes in my routine every day so that I could get as close to being here without actually being here. And so on my desktop computer, the wallpaper was a scene of looking out of a window into the mountains here, because every time I would get on my computer and I would see that, I would automatically, that would trigger me to remember what it felt like when I was here the first time, looking out of a window and seeing that scene. And so I would immediately take myself to the memory, because the memory is as close to what the experience would actually feel like, since I gave myself that memory by coming here and visiting here for our vacation. And so I would remember back to the vacation and that moment when I was looking out and I was so like, oh, I love it here, I love it here. And I would embody that, embrace and bring that up. Going to sleep at night, I would put on this repeating nature sound of the crickets, because at here you can hear all the crickets going off at night. I love the sound. And so at night back in Houston, I used to put the crickets on my phone and I would fall asleep with the crickets. My partner would do the same thing. We both were doing the same thing. So we would fall asleep listening to the crickets. I bought piñon, which is an incense that is very unique to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And so when we came here first, the fireplace that I smelled in the house we stayed in was amazing. Like it smelled like that. It's almost like a bacony smell, but it's wood. Loved it. And so I bought incense, and every day I would light it like clockwork, because it reminded me of being here. And every time I would smell it, instead of thinking of myself in home in Houston, I would immediately bring myself to the memory of walking in and smelling that, being like, oh, I love this smell. So I would do all these little things to remind myself that I was here, and I gave myself that experience. In the first few trips we came out here, every single time I was here, I was so happy to be here, and I did not want to go back to Houston. And I dreaded going back. Because I had to go back to work, go back to my old life, go back to a busy city. It's a noisy place. So I would always dread having to go back to Houston. And so I did that several times for the first few trips out here. And then I was like, what am I doing? Like every time I do that, I'm triggering energy that is reacting to the reality that I'm not here and I don't live here. And that's only going to perpetuate and enforce me living in Houston. So what I started doing is every time we'd come out for vacation, I started working from here, meaning that I would schedule some appointments on a few days here. And I would rearrange the room that I was going to use as my office, move the desk up to the window, put my laptop and look out the window while I was working with clients in Santa Fe. And so I would, because I wanted to feel what it would be like to actually live here and work here, being able to look at a view or see the mountains outside my window, which I'm able to do now because I got these massive windows and I can see the mountains and everything else. And so, but I wanted to see what it felt like. And so that was the closest thing I could do to make myself feel and have the experience. So it was less about visualizing something that I had no idea what would actually feel like, and giving myself as close to what it would feel like as possible, even if it was just a vacation and a memory from a vacation, or a moment of a smell, or a moment of a sound, or, so that's what we were doing. A coffee cup full of piñon coffee. Those little things are what made me feel closer and closer and closer to being here. And over the next 2 or 3 years, I was able to make that happen. But I had to give myself that experience. And so that's what we are talking about. So visualizing being here is not going to go as far as actually taking a trip here and then remembering those moments and then trying to remember that back there and trying to do it as often as possible, so that it felt like a norm to me. Because it doesn't need to feel, it doesn't need to be something extraordinary. It doesn't need to be something intense and huge. It needs to be something that is normal for you and something that feels like, well, duh, of course this is what it smells like. Of course this is. And to this day, I still feel this way. Like I'm walking and I smell the rain. I'm like, I love that smell. It's one of my favorite smells. And so there are things that I experience that I still pay very close attention to. And it's those little moments that you want to bring into your everyday experience to get closer and closer to it. So if you want to be someone who doesn't have to stress out over what they're buying at the grocery store, then give yourself exercises and say, I'm going to take this $50, I'm going to go to the store, and I'm just going to spend it on whatever the hell I want, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. And I'm going to get used to not feeling guilty about it. And I'm going to do it once a month. And so that way you can start to feel, and buy stuff that under normal circumstances you couldn't really afford on a regular basis. But if you buy it maybe once a month, then you can afford it. But you want it so that it's set up so that if it's like a grocery store trip, you're buying groceries, and it's something that is way more, like the idea of buying a $10 steak was like, I mean, I couldn't even fathom that. Like in my mind, I'm like $10. Like you could buy like, if you're Mexican, you could like live off of $10 in like basic foods, and you buy the cheap steaks that are like $3 or $4, you know. So I didn't think. To me, the idea of buying a $10 steak was like, that's a lot of money for meat, especially when it's just one steak and it's for one person. But today I can buy a $10 steak. It's for my partner because I don't really eat much meat, but it's, you know, it's a $10 steak. But I don't stress out over it. Now, if I'm paying like $25 for a steak, like at that point I'm like, this is a bit too much. I don't really feel like spending that much for like a piece of meat that someone's, and I may even mess it up in the recipe, so I don't even want to take the risk unless it's like a professional steak. If we go out and eat at a restaurant, I'll pay $25 for a steak. I ain't paying $25 if I'm gonna make it, because I don't want to take the risk that I mess it up and it tastes like shit, and then I'm be like, I just spent $25 on a steak that I messed up. So but the mindset, right? But you just practice, and you give yourself that experience. You'll build up a reality. You'll build up a being used to this being the norm. But you gotta adapt. You gotta transition into that. You can't just do it. Start from like not having it and intensely wanting it to just wishful thinking and hoping that that's going to be enough. It's not going to do anything. So hold on. I'm gonna lower the blinds. Hold on a second. Yeah, sometimes when the sun's going down, the summertime, it hits me and I'm like, it's too hot. All right, so going back to this. To become aware of your thoughts, you can also set the intention, I am the master of my thoughts. Say it often, meditate on it, and as you hold to that intention, by the law of attraction, you must become that. That's dumb. Like, no. I don't agree with that. That's a waste of energy and a waste of time. It's easier, instead of having thoughts, I am the master and control my thoughts. I am the master, control my, no, like, your mind is going to operate the way, unless you want to dedicate years of that kind of intensity to controlling your thoughts and so forth, which there are people in this planet who do that, but they spend years in meditation. A lot of Buddhists have that ability, but they've spent years building up to that. Like that's a lot of extra work for something that you don't have to do to get what you want. So that's just my personal experience. You are now receiving the knowledge that will enable you to create the most magnificent version of you. The possibility of that version of you already exists on the frequency of the most magnificent version of you. Decide what you want to be, do, and have. Think the thoughts of it, emit the frequency, and your vision will become your life. And I agree with that. So, and I'll stop there because there's a few things here. I agree with that because in my mind, I've always seen myself a certain way, and I always envision myself as a certain type of person. And whenever I've encountered anybody who's like the version of me that I preferred to be, whether it was a character on television or whether it were in a show or whether it was an actual person that I knew, instead of trying to reimagine myself, I would just start to take on their habits, their behaviors, just the energy. And in some ways, I would act like that person or like that character to embody and to get used to what it would feel like. And so as being myself today and who I am, I'm really happy with myself, and I'm really content with who I've become and where I'm at and how I feel about myself. Am I perfect? Hell no. Do I have everything 100% the way I want it? Hell no. Is everything like 100% easy for me? Most of the time. So, but you know, there are still struggles that I have to deal with, just like any human being. But when I've envisioned myself and I've thought of myself in a certain way, I've progressively worked towards being more and more and more of that. And one thing that I've always wanted to be is I've always wanted to have a study, a library full of books, like books. And in my life, twice before have I started to build up a library, and then something happens and I lose the library, I lose all my books. And so I've always wanted to have a study. I've always wanted to be a person who reads a lot, or who studies, or who does a lot of research. I've always wanted to be that, just because it's something I've valued. It's something that I've always appreciated. And so I've always envisioned my office and a library and the way that I would be in it and so forth. And now I have it. I've been able to achieve it. I have my vision boards of it. And books are expensive, y'all, by the way. So for those of y'all who want a library, like, books are freaking expensive. You can rack up a few $1,000s real fast by buying books. But I've been able to achieve that. I've been able to do that. And I'm really proud of that. And that's something that, and it's a reflection of me as a person, but it's also something that I've always wanted. And it's something that I always appreciated and acknowledged in other people as well. And so, like, you may have noticed, like, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, like, my bookshelf was gone, and I was like, what happened to his bookshelf, or what's going on? See, right? And it's because the bigger one that was there, I moved it to this side because I kept buying more books and getting more books and building up my library, and I didn't have enough space on my first shelf. So the first shelf's right there. I'll show you the first shelf. So that's my first shelf. And then I bought a little mini one, and I bought a mini one, and I just picked it up yesterday because I had to go to Albuquerque to get it. But anyways, I picked up the mini one, and so all of the books, because I had a lot of extra books, there was like tons of books in my closet, and I was like, I hope all of these fit, but this is how I want my room to look, and I feel like it's going to look amazing when I get the other shelf. And they all fit perfectly. I literally had just enough room for all the existing books that I had. So that's fine. Like, I think I'm good. I think I'm pretty good with books, but that's something I've always envisioned of myself. That's always something that I wanted for myself. I've been wanting a room with a view as an office. I have that now, and I see myself in this way. So these are parts of that process. So the ending of that section is the great secret summaries. The great secret of life is the law of attraction. The law of attraction says like attracts like. So when you think a thought, you are also attracting like thoughts to you. Thoughts are magnetic, and thoughts have a frequency. As you think thoughts, they are sent out into the universe, and they are magnetically attracted they magnetically attract all like things that are on the same frequency. Everything sent out returns to the source, you. You are like a human transmission tower, transmitting a frequency with your thoughts. If you want to change anything in your life, change the frequency by changing your thoughts. Your current thoughts are creating your future life. What you think about the most or focus on the most will appear as your life. Your thoughts become things. And we'll stop there because that's the end of that chapter and section. Okay, so here's what I'm going to say. When you read The Secret, the idea that it puts forward, or the mindset, the visual that it kind of gives you is that there's good and there's bad. If I just think of good, I will achieve all the things in my life. And it's not like that at all. That's crap. They have it wrong. And they actually realize this because they put out other books that correct this, but that's where they get this wrong. Don't think of life as just good or bad, and if I just do the good thing or I have positive thoughts, I will only experience the great stuff, but I won't have to deal with the bad stuff. Don't think of it that way, because at that point you're creating this reality that does not exist, which is that there's only good and there's bad. No, and then you either live a good life or you live a bad life. No, think of it this way. Think of it as if you're going down a river and that they are rapids. And in the river there are larger stones, there are smaller stones. And you're in a canoe and you have a paddle. And your paddle is going to help you to maneuver and get through these experiences in a way that you can reduce the amount of suffering or crashes that you have with the moments where there are going to be bigger stones or things that you just have to overcome. And so I think of it this way. I'm in this canoe, I'm paddling along, or kayak, I'm paddling along. The flow of the river is going in one direction. So my job is to align with that flow and just go with that flow and let it carry me so that I don't have to work so hard. So I'm going to go with the flow, learn what that flow feels like, understand what that feels like, go along with the flow of the river and make peace with it, be a friend with the river, respect it as well, because what you are in alignment with and what you can flow with can also be your undoing. And so I know that if I go with the flow of the river, it's going to be a lot easier for me to enjoy the experience and to get more out of it. And so when I need to use my paddle being intention and action, or intention and behavior, my intention, my focus, my mindset, my energy, my actions, my follow through, all of that have to align with what I'm trying to do, which is stay aligned with the river. If I'm getting closer to areas where there's a lot of bigger rocks and stones and harder rapids, I know that I'm not going to be able to just skip over that. That's a part of this experience that I'm going down. So I either need to work with the river's flow to get around these experiences so that I don't hurt myself, or so that there's less chance of me suffering, or I can fight the current and say, no rocks, no bad thoughts, no bad experiences, no whatever. And then I start to become erratic, disrespecting the flow of the river, disrespecting the reality of the situation, trying to pretend like it doesn't exist. And while I'm doing that, I'm basically fighting the current, and I'm going to end up hurting myself, flipping myself over, which I've already done in a kayak, or I'm going to end up hitting the rock and I'm going to hurt more. So you can either operate from one perspective or the other, and that's how I see it. So when you focus on a proper mindset, on a mindset of respecting the process, respecting the path, respecting the current, honoring it, working with it, going with it, understanding it, being friends with it, being at peace with it, and then using the tools at your disposal, which are your intent and your mental focuses, as well as your action or follow through, then that will help you to maneuver and to get the most out of the experience. And you will enjoy a lot more of your experience going down the river. But if you are trying to avoid the rocks, avoid everything that is going to be bumpy, avoid the idea or fear that goes along with that, thinking you can't survive it or you can't get through it, and then you're only trying to have smooth currents and an easy thing, you're going to set yourself up for failure, and you're going to end up hurting yourself, slamming into the rock, and you're going to suffer more. And then you're going to be like, this doesn't work, which happens. People who go by what they are saying here, they end up not doing it the right way, not fully understanding the process, and then like, this doesn't work, I'm stopping, and they stop, they don't use it anymore, but they may like be on a high, on the secret high for like a good month or two, and then they're like, this doesn't work, I'm not going to do it. So let's see. Yes, people's like, you put yourself down when you see everything as just black and white. I'm learning this now. Don't be so hard on yourself. Yes, when I am kind with myself and accepting of myself, I know that it's not me. I know that it's God, and I'm allowing God to love me unconditionally in that moment. If I'm hard on myself, or I put guilt on myself, I know that that's a human part of me that is holding me to expectations or conditions. And I have to weigh that out. Am I being appropriate and honoring who I am, or do I need to evolve and reach that new level of being that I'm being summoned to, that I'm being called to, the opportunity that exists before me? It may not be comfortable to go through that, but it's what. So I can either see myself in a loving, unconditional way, which I try to do as often as possible. But in moments where I know that I've done something that I'm not too proud of, or done something that maybe I shouldn't have done, or that maybe I could have done differently, I try to be more forgiving of myself, but I also look at myself and really assess, do I need to hold myself to a higher standard? Do I need to really shift gears and really do a lot more to kind of overcome this limiting experience, to give myself an advantage, the advantage that is being offered to me through the experience or not? Regardless, I'm still loved by God. Nothing changes with that. I'm still accepted. she's like, can you talk about overthinking and reading too much into things? I do that a lot. That has nothing to do with reading too much or overthinking. That has to do with control. You have control issues, which means you're trying to control things to keep yourself from being hurt and to reduce the suffering. That's what's going on there. So when we overthink things, we're trying to find a way to avoid pain or suffering. That's why we overthink things, because we're trying to find a way to control. So that's what that's about. And so what I would say is, instead of trying to avoid or stop yourself from overthinking, because if that's just by default naturally happening and you're reading too much into things, then what ends up happening is, if you try to avoid or keep yourself from doing that, you're actually going to build more momentum and you're going to become even worse at it, and you're going to start to hate yourself and guilt yourself over it. So what I would suggest is, instead of trying to fight that feeling, distract yourself. That's one of the secrets of the secret that I learned. My partner and I, we don't call it the law of attraction, we call it the law of distraction. Because if you are trying to avoid focusing on something or doing something because you feel like it's going to lead to to an end mark or to an ending that you're not going to be happy with, instead of trying to fight that feeling, distract yourself with something. So in other words, if I'm freaking out, and this is how I do it with money. Here's an example. So whenever, and I used to do this a lot, I don't have to do it as much because it's by default now, it's happening naturally. But before, if I didn't have a lot of appointments and I felt like there was gaps in my bookings, then I would immediately, the first thing I would start to do was freak out. Like, oh my God, is my business going to stop? Am I no longer going to have clients? Am I not going to be able to pay my bills? And I go into this tailspin, right? We're overthinking it, right? And so I had to learn, you have to trust the process, Ferny. You have to understand that there's only so much you can control. What can you control? Well, I can control how I promote myself. I can control how much I connect with other people. I can control if I advertise or not. Okay, well then, can you work on that? Yeah, I can work on that. And so then I work on that. So then I put a little money towards advertising. I focus on connecting with people. I focus on, so I focus on the things I can control. And when I start to think about, what if this isn't enough? What if that's not going to work? What if I'm not going to make the money anyways? What if I still go through all that? No. All I can do is do what I can do and what is within my control. So I make it a point to do those things instead of just wishful thinking. I do those things, and then I distract myself, meaning I give myself something to focus on that can totally consume me, that's not going to give me a chance to really think about the things that I'm worried about. So I focus on something else. And I do that all the time now. I just distract myself with something that I can throw my energy and my mind and my focus into, that is totally I'm going to become so consumed with that I'm not even going to give myself a chance to think about the thing that could potentially build up an energy and charge around that and then start to bring that in. So that's how I get around that. My sister has the opposite problem, because my sister's gone through this with me as well, where she still tries to control, and I'm always like, stop trying to force yourself to not do something. Instead, make peace with yourself, accept yourself, and just do what you can within your control, and then distract yourself on something else. Focus on something else. Give your attention to something else. And so when I'm going through periods, or when I've gone through periods, because this is not my issue now, when I've gone through periods, I know I'm like tooting my own horn, but I mean, it is where it is. When I found myself worried about something, for example, money or finances, what I end up doing is okay, well, what do I need to do to kind of stabilize that or balance that out? Okay, well, let me take that action. Okay, and then I try not to think about it after that, because once I do what I'm supposed to do, then at that point, that's it. That's all within my control, and then I focus on something else. So instead of worrying about money, I'm like, well, what do I need to do for work? What am I behind on, or what I need to catch up on? And then I throw myself into something that's going to consume my energy, and I don't even think about the finances after that. I did what I was supposed to do, did what was in my control, and then law of distraction. And so that's why I call it the law of distraction. Distract yourself, distract yourself, distract yourself. As long as you doing what's necessary and appropriate, and what's and what you should be doing to achieve your goal. And that's how I would describe it. If that makes any sense. Let me go up here, because I'm going to see if y'all wrote anything about something else here. Hi, Lizzie. Handsome Ferny. Ah, sweet. Yeah. She's like, I love that you have to work with the evils of the world to make something positive. I'm going to write that down. You have to. This is the reality that we live in, y'all. This is the reality that we live in. There are people who have had the most profound, uplifting experiences by going through some of the darkest periods in their life. The reason why I can sit here and share all of this with y'all is because I've been through some shit. I've been through some shit. I've been through some really dark times, some painful experiences. And instead of thinking back and resenting, regretting, getting angry, allowing myself to go into hatred, allowing myself to go into anger, instead of going into a shadow version of myself over those experiences, I try to see what I can use to help other people with it. Because I'm like, okay, I'm not the only person who's gone through that, and I'm not the only person who's going to go through that going forward. What can I take from that? What can I use that with? What did I learn from that? How was I able to use that to make myself a better person, to grow from it? So I try to pull something from it, and that's what I try to do. I try to make coffee out of dirt. And if I need to add some spices to make it taste like coffee, then that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to try to get as close to it as possible. So that's what I try to do. And that's not wishful thinking. That's just doing the best that you can. So the time delay can take a while. Some of my big manifestations took 7 to 10 years. Here's another trick. And yes, sometimes it can take a while, because in order for you to get to a point so one of the things that I told God many years ago, I'm always talking to God. Now it's like, it's in my head, but I would say, don't give me wealth. Because I saw these people who would end up building wealth for themselves, and then they would lose it all. Like Cynthia Sanford, like I talked about last time, where she won the lottery and then now she's, bankrupt. So I'm like, I don't want to be like these people. I don't want to be another version of that. So I want to learn how to manage money and wealth. So if I ever have it, I will be able to use it and do some incredible things with it. Have incredible experiences for myself and do incredible things for people with it. And I actually have an entire plan for what is going to happen with this. I want to create, I don't want to go into it because I can get into a whole new conversation and get passionate about that. But anyways, so I'm like, teach me how to manage this. Teach me how to do good with this. Teach me how to be good with this. And so instead of like trying to go and just like, do it, that was always an idea. Like, I'm going to go and win the lottery. Didn't happen. But I had to learn to build my own wealth. And so I had to learn to pay off my own debt, start to utilize my funds properly, and then be smart about the future. So in my mind right now, I'm in a great place, because I remember when I used to just wish for winning a lottery, and I'm like, okay, Cynthia Stanford, what she did to win the lottery is she was already looking into financial advisors. She was already she had an attorney. She was already looking at, so I need to do that too, so I can win it too. And so what ended up happening was, instead, I ended up just being better with my money, being better with increasing my debt. I reduced my debt. I did get a financial advisor who is helping me to prepare for retirement, because I want to retire at some point and not have to worry about where my money is going to come from. And so I've got my retirement plan set up. I've got, so I focus on saving. I focus on doing what I'm supposed to, but those are practical things. But when I look at myself today, the position that I have today and in my financial state is like a dream. It's like a dream version compared to where I was before. And so I'm like, wow, I thought I would have to win the lottery to get to the place that I'm at now, which is not stressing about money every day, not doing this, being able to afford to enjoy my life, and so I thought I would have to get to an ideal mental place financially to be able to do this. And instead, all it took was just me shifting, and I still got what I wanted, but didn't have to do it the way that I thought I would have to. So that's kind of a way to do it. But as far as going back to the time delay, when we're in spirit or in energy form, what we desire is immediate, but we don't really desire, because we are in energy form. Meaning that we are not based in the egoic sense of wanting to accumulate or needing to have something, because we are not missing anything. We are not deficient, broken people like we are here. We're missing home. We're missing connection to each other. We're still separated by our physical bodies. So in spirit form, we're in a very different state. Physical form, we still feel a disconnect from source, from the higher, grander mind. And so it's not easy being here. And then we have to deal with the realities of life. And then we all have conflictive natures that we're always, getting on each other about. And so when it comes to being the time delay, what I found, and here's a trick. In order for you to really, and this is more to do with the things you really want to manifest. Like, you really have to do more work to manifest. The easy things usually will come pretty easily. You don't have to do a whole lot of extra for that. But the stuff that takes a little more effort, that means something to you, in other words, if what you're desiring really means something to you, that means there's a lot of conflictive energy behind it as well. So by default, if you really want something to happen, that means you also have just as much conflictive energy with it as well, which means you're holding it back as much as you are actually desiring it. And so you have to get to a place where you're at peace with it. But once you can do that, if you can maintain that mindset, that state of being for 30 to 90 days, typically you may see it within that time frame. And so I've gotten used to the idea that when I put my mind towards something, it typically shows up within 30 to 90 days, because 30 days is when you actually get to a place where it's a consistent habit. And then 90 days is when it just becomes second nature. And then at that point, it's likely to occur. But some things, depending on how it's connected to the rest of your life, will take time, will take the right circumstances to occur, and you may not be in those right circumstances. Some of those pieces may still not be a part of your life, and so some things are going to take longer just because of the way it's set up in your life, and that's okay. It's okay if it's going to take time. It doesn't. If you need it right away or you need it overnight, that means you've got just as much conflictive energy with it, and you're actually going to be holding it back. So be prepared for that. Okay. Let's see. Speak of it. So, the dials has a LA dial. So here's how you do it. Because she said, how do you embody the memory of you aren't sure where you are going? In other words, when you can only like just dream about something, but you don't even know what that would even feel like, what you need to do at that point is you need to try to understand what it would feel like. In other words, you either connect with people who have been through it so that you can start to gain that through those people, surround yourself with people who already have it, or give yourself micro experiences, micro meaning little moments where you can have a sense of it. So for me, taking vacations and doing it when I was doing vacation, that was my micro experience of living in Santa Fe. And so I used it to my advantage. And then I brought it with me. I brought all those elements that I could with me. So if you don't know what it feels like to have money and not worry or stress about money, then first you need to not really be around people who are constantly complaining about money or not having it. Secondly, and I understand that because if you grew up in a family or grew up around people, that's all they do, you might have to limit how involved you're going to be with those people. Because if you surround yourself with a mindset or a group of people, you become those people, or they are a reflection of who you are. So if you want to know who you really are in this world, take a look at the people around you, the closest people around you. And that is who you are. And if you don't like that, then that's on you, because that's what you're sustaining. That's what you're reflecting yourself by. And so that's on you. So if you want to be different, then you got to change it up, right? You got to pull back and like focus on. So I surrounded myself with people who I felt much more in alignment with as far as what I was trying to achieve. And so I was able to have more friendships with people who did have money, who did have different life experiences. My best friend being one of them, she is loaded, and they've done very well for themselves. And just by being around her, she's given me experiences and allowed me to witness through her what it would be like. And so in my mind, there are things that before I would have been freaking out over, like going to an expensive restaurant and paying $600 for a 2-person meal. Like that in my mind would have sounded crazy, and I could not understand that. And the first time I had that kind of experience, it was a process for me. And now I can go to a restaurant, order whatever. It's like whatever. Like, I mean, if it's $600, it's $600. If we can afford it, or you want to treat me, I'm gonna let you treat me. And if I want to treat somebody to something that expensive, once in a lifetime, it better be damn good, because I'm gonna be raising hell if it ain't. So, but you surround yourself with that, and so you have to give yourself these micro versions of the experience. So anything that you can reach for, anything you can give yourself, to give yourself that. Like there's a one practice is like, if you dream of a new car, then go try out driving new cars. If you are poor and you go to a Mercedes or a BMW dealership, you're going to feel worse about yourself, because you're going to feel poor. People are going to judge you because you probably look a certain way or act a certain way or whatever. That's going to obviously reflect your where you are in your life and where your background is. And so you're going to get treated this way. And you're probably going to feel worse about yourself. So if you go trying to give yourself a micro experience, you're probably going to feel like crap. So don't go to like the best of the best. Go to like a used car dealership and then drive the used one first so you can get comfortable with it and you know more about it. Look into it, understand it from a different perspective. So that's what I would recommend. If you want, go rent a car for a day and ask for a more expensive vehicle. So if you want to feel like you've been chauffeured around, then do a freaking what is it called? Do a Uber and pick the more expensive options available, and then act as if you're like you just got off of a job and you're being driven home. Little things like that. If you want to live in a certain type of house, then go and rent it or go and use it for like a day or two. Airbnb it. That's what you give yourself. Give yourself that experience, and then you will start to acclimate and adapt and feel more like it. And it'll be easy for you to go back into that memory and bring it back up. Instead of trying to wish for something that you've never experienced and even trying to grasp for it. Give yourself the representation or an example of the experience and get as close to it as possible. And here's the thing. If you start to do that, you will actually have more of those kinds of experiences come, meaning that you'll start having more experiences manifest that get you closer to it and closer to it. Because at that point, you're actually embodying the experience and the energy. You're not just wishful thinking at that point. It's not just this thing in your head that seems like it's far away or it's super big. It's something you can totally relate to. I can relate to having a $600 meal with one other person, and that's how much our meal cost. I can relate to that because I've had the experience. And so I built up to that, but I understand. And so that's how you get closer to it. You have to give yourself those experiences. If you want to work, if you want to have your own business, then understand what it really is like to have your own business. Meaning, don't just idealize it. People who own their businesses have to deal with some shit. You have to pay your taxes. You have to make sure you're accounting for everything properly. You can't be TurboTaxing everything, y'all. So there's a lot of details that go along with it besides this, I'm a business owner and I'm a mover and a shaker and I'm like, girl, you stupid. Like, that is not what it's like to own your own business. You got to stress about some things sometimes, and that's okay. That's part of the process, but it is the reality of the situation. And so give yourself micro experiences and decide to take on a project or use these experiences of being in charge of some things to feel what it's going to be like to be the boss or to dominate or to control things the way a business owner would. So say, I'm going to put on a party for my best friend. She's having a baby. I'm going to give her a baby shower, but I'm going to treat this as if I'm a professional planner. And so I'm going to operate like a professional planner using this experience with my best friend, which is just a friend thing, but I'm doing it and I'm going to pretend like it's my business and I'm running this and everything about it has to do. And that's an opportunity to use it to your advantage. So that's what I would recommend. Okay. All right, guys. Roxy's like, these are facts. So, all right, guys, I'm done. I got to get because I got to go for my walk before I got to make dinner. So I love you all. I will see you all next week, next Wednesday, same time.